or hire new employees? That's a question that people are asking following a recent report from the state comptroller that shows the state doled out nearly $530 million in overtime last year. Our Capitol correspondent Pat Bailey joins us live now from our Albany bureau, where he tried to get the answer to the question of which is cheaper. Something I worked on for a couple of days, Pat. I hope you did better than I did.
Well, Liz, as you know, everyone familiar with this topic says that there really is no cut and dry answer. Bottom line, right now, state employees are taking home $500 million in overtime, a figure the comptroller's office says continues to climb each year. A report by the Comptroller's office shows a steady increase in state overtime costs since 2010. Just last year, the hours jumped by nearly 6%, while earnings climbed by 11%.
These are expenditures that the Comptroller wants to be scrutinized very carefully.
But they are numbers the governor's office says don't tell the whole story. For example, the budget office says during the time of this report, the state was dealing with Superstorm Sandy. They claim a lot of overtime was racked up in the cleanup and the aftermath. The report, however, shows overtime has consistently grown over the past 3 years. Assemblyman Jim Tedisco believes that is because state agencies are dealing with a double-edged sword, being forced to maintain services after being scaled back to make budget.
What's the better option, paying more in overtime or less services?
I think it's got to be a balance. I'd like to see how these examples of padding took place. Were there people who just were not getting services and they said, well, you've got to spend this time because these are important people, they're important clients. If you don't provide the services, it's going to cost more in the long run. Or were they just a case of allowing padding to take place?
The budget office says no padding here. A spokesman says since the governor took office, agency budgets were cut by 10%. Spending has remained flat ever since, and each agency is managing its workforce to stay within the budget. They say as a result, overall payroll spending is down. So again, the question is, what is the best for you, the taxpayer and the state? You heard from the assemblyman there. Coming up tonight at 6:30, I talked with another person familiar with the situation, a professor and former private firm executive, to get his thoughts. He said the question is basically, how fast do you want to solve whatever problem you have within the agency? I'll have his interview tonight, Liz, at 6:30.
And how about the comptroller? What does he say about these high overtime costs? How does he see them containing them?
Well, those who did the report that worked on it in the comptroller's office say they did not analyze why specifically there was such high overtime costs. Usually in these cases, the comptroller's office will make a recommendation to fix the problem, what they see as a problem, and they say in this case they did not do that because they say there already is a mandate or a standard, if you will, that agencies must abide by as far as keeping overtime in check.
All right. Thank you very much, Pat Bailey.